Yes, hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of Full Course Yellow. It's our Wednesday night sort of chat session, getting together to talk about all things motorsport and other things as well. We might even mention a bit of cricket, I think, after last night. You never know. Anyway, thanks for joining us if you're watching us for the first time. This is sort of a spin-off of In Pit Lane, which can be seen every Thursday night at 9 o'clock on Channel 31 Melbourne, or 9:30 on demand on the In Pit Lane YouTube channel. Tomorrow night we're going out to rats, tats, and pin-ups. Rats, tats, and pin-ups. Thought I'd go along there because I do have a tat. I have one tat, and it happens to be of a rat. So there you go. So I thought I might go along, and there was a whole bunch of really cool cars there. And we're going to have a look at some of those cars, have a talk to some of the people who build and drive them. That's tomorrow night on the program. But right now, let's talk about. Let's see who's joining us tonight. Let's have a look at who at the cast of several. And we've got Doc, we've got Richard, we've got Pete, and we've got Chris. G'day everybody, how are you?
Good evening, Brett. Good evening, viewers and listeners.
Yes, well, we've got, and first of all, we've down the bottom you can see one of the first topics. We'll get it out of the way quickly. The announcement today that the CEO of Motorsport Australia, Eugene Rocker, has announced his intention to retire. At the end of the year, he's going to hang on until they find a replacement for him. But yes, congratulations to Eugene. I think he's been in many ways a divisive figure for a lot of people. But I have to say, and I think Doc and everyone would agree with me, and Pete and all the rest, that he's been a very good friend of the show over the years. And in fact, there's stuff that there's a lot of stuff that Eugene has done for motorsport that the people don't know about, that we sort of are privileged to. And I think he's done a fabulous job, especially when you consider. I mean, when we had him on the show last, we spoke to it and pointed out that we were one of the first. I think we were the first people to interview him after he got the job, when he came straight from the world of AFL football in North Melbourne. And a lot of the things he said that he wanted to do, particularly in terms of establishing a stronger relationship with government, making sure that motorsport got more of the fair share of sports funding and tourism funding, and put the sport on a more business footing. He has certainly. He certainly achieved that. I remember him saying on that first interview that at the time motorsport in Australia was getting less money than things like rollerblading and yachting, and it was a lot less. I think in the year we got about. I think the sport got about $11,000 in government grants over the past year or so. Just in Victoria alone, we've had the best part of many millions of dollars. And of course, we've got the hopefully coming up. We've got the building of Avalon as well. Although whether that actually happens or not, we'll see. But anybody else want to just chime in about Eugene and his contribution? How he'll be remembered to the sport? I know this is not a popular.
More so. I think. Look, I called him a street fighter when he was on the show with us last year, Brett, and. He was absolutely brilliant on the progressive improvement he's seen across the motorsport landscape over the last years since his reign, and I think when I say he was, because that was James Brayshaw that called him a street fighter back in the day, and he's never lost that talent or never lost that edge that he has. But how I think he's the last few years, it's more of a refined way of going about things, and I think he's used it appropriately at the right times and place with the right associations that needed to be tamed in one way, shape, or form, and provide those relationships in the long-term aspect of it, so that everyone can be enjoyed, and doesn't matter if he's at the helm or somebody else is running the show, or not necessarily has to be the CEO that has to be in liaison with the association. That it'll provide a great future for everyone, and has built those relationships. So I think, I tip my hat to Eugene every day of the week to what he does for the association. And Richard's nodding in improvement the whole time since even Brett started speaking. So I don't think racing would be the same as what it is and coherent across the whole of Australia if Eugene hadn't done what he's done.
Yeah, I think the thing is. Yeah, I think the thing is, I mean, he's been. He hasn't been, obviously. I mean, he needs to focus on the top end. He needs to focus to an extent on Grand Prix. But I mean, we've caught up with him like at the smallest of meetings, and I'm not just talking about like state racing. I'm talking about like club meetings as well, where you'll turn up and he'll be there, wandering around, chatting to people, just there. In fact, that's the last time he was on the show. It was, I think you were with me, Doc. We were out at a meeting. It wasn't. Don't think it was a state meeting. I think it was I think it was a club meeting or a relay of some sort, and he was out there, and we just said, "Oh, I'd like to catch up with you for another chat." And he said, "Yeah, of course. You drop us a line, I'll be there." And just contacted him straight away. Said, "Are you available on this night?" And he said, "Yep, I can make it." And there he was, and he's done that on every occasion. So he's been very accessible.
Great enthusiasm too. He loves coming on the show and having a chat with us too, didn't he?
Yeah, as I said, he's been very supportive, and it really is a fact that there's a chance that the show wouldn't be on the air nowadays if there were things that he did sort of quite a few years ago before the pandemic, which got us out of a lot of trouble with Channel 31. We had a sponsor that basically did the wrong thing by us, and Eugene jumped in and sorted some things out with Channel 31. So. So we really appreciate that. But
I don't think he'll actually. When he says he's retiring from this position, I think it'll be actual fact. But I don't think he'll be gone from Australian society in full retirement.
No, he's already on his Facebook page tonight. He said that one of the reasons he does want to. He said he's obviously got very broad interests, outside of motorsport, including other sports like football, obviously, but also he does a lot of work with I think with the Royal Melbourne Hospital, a number of charities, and he said that he would like to have more time to involve himself and bring some of the skills that he's acquired from his time at Collingwood and North Melbourne, and now in Motorsport Australia, where he can bring that expertise to those sort of community organisations. To be honest with you, it went through my mind. Might even tap him up and see whether he might be interested in popping onto the board of RMI TV Student Television. You never know. I mean, we've probably got more than enough to do. I wouldn't
want to wish that upon you, Dean. He'll shake, rattle, and roll there. I'll tell you, he'll scrape a few of the backliners up there. But anyway,
and I think what box
he has never been invisible.
No, he does get out there, and I've even seen online a lot of the people who have criticised him have said that I didn't agree with anything with a lot of the things that the guy said, but his door always seemed to be open. He didn't run away and hide. He was very forceful, which you sort of need to be in the world of motorsport, where he made decisions and he stuck by them in the main, and he defended them well. And I suppose, being a lawyer, he could, with that legal background, he could do that. But I think that overall he's done a very good. I think he's done a very good job in very difficult conditions. I mean, let's face it. I mean, after you couldn't get worse conditions than the previous years with COVID and all the rest of it. It was a lot of sports didn't come out well at the other end, but I think motorsports come out in the main pretty well.
We can bang on about Eugene's exploits all night, but you just touched on it then, Brett. He's also his lawyer background. I think I did a bit of a sum or a tally up there at one stage there a little while ago on how much pro bono, how much work he has done for free rather than actually charging lawyer rates. And I think it was just astronomical, the amount of work he's done for charity and help and get sporting organisations or just any sort of charitable way. He has done it absolutely for free. And, it's been highly regarded and highly successful, and that's why he's highly respected. So, congratulations, Eugene. Great tenure.
Yeah, well done to Eugene. So let's get back on to stuff that was happening on the track. First of all, over the weekend, let's just stick locally. We'll get on to Formula One in a second, but the Darwin Triple Crown was on the weekend. Yet again, another hugely successful meeting in terms of the crowd. We'll get on to some unfortunate incidents that happened in the drag racing a little bit later on. That was sort of probably the only sort of major down point of the weekend. There's a couple of bad accidents there, one in particular, but we'll have more. The good news is that things are looking a lot better than they were on sort of Sunday afternoon. But Camaro's winning again, and today Supercars Australia have announced that they are going to have a look at the parity. The trigger has been ticked, which says that basically they are now obliged or permitted to have a good look at the parity situation again and make some changes if necessary to make the Fords more competitive. But that's not keep making everybody happy. Jamie Whincup has of course come out and been very strong in saying that this is a knee-jerk reaction and the cars are fast. Roland Dane came out today and said basically if Cam Waters' car hadn't have caught fire on Saturday, then we might not be having this conversation now because he probably would have won. But as other people said, well, like 2 race wins out of all the possible race wins that they could have had, and I think even with podiums. It's I saw a figure somewhere. It was ridiculous. Like out of 48 possible places on the podium, Mustangs have only got about 5 or something. So there's clearly a problem with the two of them. But I think that's an inherent problem with the category. I think Pete, you had a look at it. What do you think?
But with Cam Waters, the problem with the fire was I think it's a control thing, which was a bolt or something on the injector or the pipe going to the injector, which they then adjusted on all the Ford Mustangs. It's on all the Ford Mustangs. So you could argue that the disparity was mechanically there.
Only for that one indiscretion for the motor, but you've got to look at the parity across all races and all placings and all top tens. It's just ridiculous. It's a Camaro.
For that race, you could argue that the disparity was in that mechanical area, and they adjusted it. But so the disparity is mechanical.
Yeah, I think the thing was, it wasn't connected in any way to the previous fires that we saw with Nick Percat and James Courtney, but it was a totally different thing. But it's more fires that I can. There's obviously a problem there somewhere. But Ford, Tickford put out a statement this afternoon, basically saying, it wasn't our fault. It was a piece that failed. It was nothing that we did wrong. It was a piece. There was a problem with the piece, and that's now been replaced. So that's not the problem. But I think that what they're saying is because one of the arguments is, hey, look how fast Cam was. Look how fast some of the Mustangs have been in qualifying. But I think that Grove Racing have put it sort of the best, that they say, yes, well, okay, we can be very quick in qualifying and over 1 or 2 laps, but as the race goes on, we're using our rear tyres a lot more than the Camaros are. We can go as fast as they do for the first 6 or 7 laps, but then slowly but surely we're sort of falling behind.
The reg's killing it.
Yeah, so they're saying that aerodynamics is a problem, and they're saying it's not so much because the problem that they're doing was very unsophisticated the way they've tested this. They were basically straight line aerodynamic tests, and they got all the figures from straight line aerodynamic tests. They didn't look at things like yaw, which is the movement back and forwards as the cars go around corners, and that's what Ford Performance are saying right now. Is they're saying there is a major disparity there.
Well, the other thing is, and more importantly too, as well as all the movement of the car and cornering and stuff like that hasn't been properly aero tested, is they detune the Mustang engine, the Coyote engine down the Camaro engine's running closer to its capacity than what the Mustang. The Mustang's detuned right down. If they actually let both motors go to the full tilt, the Mustang would absolutely run rings around the Camaro. So
it's part of it.
They've got room to adjust a lot of things to get the parity right. But what they've done, as you've just sort of outlined, Brett, in the first place, is they haven't done really dedicated full comparison testing across a lot of different aspects of the cars, and in racing and in aero and in wash and in straight line and in cornering. They just never had the time because they basically bolted the cars together after the first round at the start of the year. They just didn't do it properly. They
rushed into it pretty.
They rushed it a whole lot, so they've never given it any sort of proper comparison. They apparently did it, but everyone knew behind the scenes that it wasn't happening, and that's why there's been such conjecture, and everyone has an argument, and everyone has a leg to stand on, because it's not sincere. It's not been done properly.
Yeah, well, I think that. Pete?
Having said that, I think it was on one of the Sunday races, Chaz Mostert made up several places in the race. He wasn't a good qualifying car, but he made several places up in the race.
Yeah, I think that's the problem. I think that's why, like Roland Dane in his column in Speed Cafe has also come out and said, this is why he said, he said, well, if Cam Waters had have won on Saturday, he doesn't think it would be as big an issue. But the fact is, if you have a look at the hard facts, and if you have a look at sort of, in terms of who's taken, the wins and who's taken all of the podiums, or a lot of the podiums, the Camaros, whatever they are. Yeah, the Camaros are definitely sort of, are definitely fast. But the point is, this is the problem when you have sort of, disparity in the engines, in the way that you've got two totally different engines. Now, if you believe what sort of, like it was going around from behind the scenes at SUPERCARS, the original plans for these things was to essentially have a control engine where the cars would be, they would be what they are, but it would be sort of similar to TA2. You would have sort of, like a generic 5 or 6 litre V8 engine, that they would all be carrying the same sort of power and the same sort of, power curve and all sorts of things. But it was specifically Ford that basically said, we are not going racing, we are not going to allow you to use our IP on the Mustang unless you run that Coyote engine, because that's the engine that people buy when they buy a Mustang at their Ford dealer, and that's the engine we want in that thing. So now they've had to make this. And then Chev said, well, we want if they're going to run their stock engine, we want to run ours. Theirs is a 5.4 overhead camshaft engine. Ours is a 5.7 pushrod engine. Suddenly you've got to get those two, fairly diverse bits of engineering, those two designs, and make them sort of, run almost identically. And then you've got to take all that aerodynamic stuff, and centre of gravity and all of it. It's a very complicated thing to do, but I think it's probably a weakness inherent in the thing. And it's not, and Parity is not balance of performance as well. I think that's another thing that people keep forgetting. I mean, you have a look at GT3 and say, well, GT3 made it work with balance of performance. That's not the same as what they're trying to do in supercars. If they were using like balance of performance, like they do in GT3, like they do in Hypercar at Le Mans, in GTP and IMSA, then they could, basically from round to round even, they could go in and say, okay, the Camaros are a bit quick, we're going to, dial down the revs, we're going to give them a little bit of extra weight, or we're going to take a bit of wing off them, or whatever they decided to do to slow them down, to bring them back a bit. That's not how this works. It's like the idea is...
And I wouldn't want that as a fan. I wouldn't want that.
No, well, that's the problem. I mean, you come up with a really good category, like a set of regulations that everybody can work to, that that everybody is, so you've got a level playing field, and then it's up to the creativity and of the different teams and the different engineers to work within that box. But you've got two totally separate boxes in supercars, and if we had a third manufacturer, we'd have a third box, and they've got to make all those. They've got to make all those boxes. Got to have all those boxes in, like get them together, even though they start out at different sizes. You've got to sort of somehow make them all fit together.
They're running parity issues on the run through the middle of from the start of the season, and they're still almost halfway through the season. They're still trying to get it right. So there's the argument, because otherwise they wouldn't still be doing it. They'd have it right from the start and be no changes. So they're doing it on the fly.
Yeah. I have to say, I think Knackers has got it right.
With Gen 2, they were doing the same thing. At the start of the season, they were doing things on the fly. They're
still doing it. They're still making changes. So they know they haven't got it right.
Hey, I'm just saying that if SVG was towing a Jayco caravan behind him, I'd pay money to go watch that. I reckon that'd be, especially at Bathurst, that'd be.
They do a bit of racing in Great Britain like that.
In a V8, in a figure of 8.
Yeah, that was great back in the day. Well, I've lost a lot of caravans, unfortunately.
Brett, you've seen.
They look fun.
But you've gone to Claude's lecture. How many variables are there in setting up a car? And then you've got two completely different manufacturers, and then try and overlay the parity one on top of the other.
Well, even Richard,
you're just asking for trouble.
They're not even a real proper Camaro or Mustang because they've had so many mods anyway, and so many similar things added to them, which would obviously outset the original specifications anyway. Because they've got the same chassis, but then different components put on some of them, and then same components put onto them, which takes it even further outside on what they are as well too. So anyway,
it's just they're a silhouette car anyway.
Yeah, they've got nothing to do with the. It's interesting, like people keep saying about production cars and all the rest of it. But if they had production, if we've seen they do it, they obviously race production cars. They raced up in Sydney on the weekend. They were at Sydney Motorsport Park in the Shannon's Trophy series, which was watched by sort of 4 men and a dog. No one was really interested, and I'm sure everyone had a lot of fun, but at the same time everyone says, oh yeah, we should go back to the way it was at Bathurst with production cars. Nobody wants to watch that stuff anymore. They want to see real racing cars, but they do want to. You do want to have, like at least a bit of unpredictability and a bit of variety there, as much as you can when you've only got two manufacturers involved. But at the moment, the one thing is, like the good thing is about it, we had 3 separate winners. Mark Winterbottom, coming back from a long time between drinks. Yeah, so he's
get his money.
He's podium 2018, win 2016.
Yeah, so congratulations to Frosty. So he came back. And then you've got at the other end of the street for the first time, Matt Stone Racing took a win with Jack LeBrock in the third race, and then of course Brock Feeney winning overall with a win in the second race of the day. But it wasn't Shane Van Gisbergen, it wasn't Chaz Mostert or Cam Waters or any of those guys. It's and the people leading the championship at the moment are the Erebus guys, Brodie Kostecki and Will Brown. So
and it seems that it's the younger guys that have a handle on these new Gen 3 cars, which I think is a good thing in a way.
Jack
sure it's Chevrolet's winning a lot, but I think it's a good thing that it seems that it's the young guys and people like Shane Van Gisbergen are being challenged by they don't have the anti-roll bars in the car anymore, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think that's
Jack-
one thing definitely that Shane's missing at the moment is that control. Because if you have a look at him, he was a bit of a master of that sort of thing. He was constantly changing setups, literally corner to corner. He was changing setups in that car. It was fascinating to watch. I mean, he was so skilled at that sort of thing. Just watching him sort of, did pull back some, put on a bit more roll, soften off the rear bar at one corner, stiffen it up on another, turn on a bit of brake bias depending on what particular corner or what lap he was on, and
he'd probably have muscle memory, and obviously did. But with those Gen 2 cars, they've been racing them for so many years. They could take them out the back of the truck basically at every single racetrack. They'd have their obviously in their data, they would have the settings ready to go. They would start with those at the start of the weekend, and they might have the track might have been resurfaced, or they might have had this component changed a little bit, some slight variations, but they could almost roll it off the truck every single meeting. And then just in the practice sessions, like everyone has the opportunity to do in life, he could just tweak a few things. I mean, as you said then, Brett, he would sit there with the anti-roll bars, or he'd say, can you take a little bit of wing off at this pit stop, or all these sorts of things. He'd just make adjustments to the whole thing because he'd been doing it for so many years, and the cars had a great basic setup as well too, due to obviously the 888 having a massive amount of years invested in every single track, and they knew what to start the car with, and then put it in the right direction.
Yeah, well, I mean, because they're making the cars as well. But the interesting thing is the cars, they're not the class that they used to be, because Erebus have got their car, but Matt Stone has come through, and you've had a few other winners along the way in the Camaro, so it's still a pretty open championship. It's not like we've seen in the past where sort of Triple Eight and particularly Shane are winning everything. I mean, it's a real battle now. I mean, and the people at the front of the pack at the moment are basically three young guys in Kostecki, Brown and Brock Feeney. Shane's still up there and thereabouts, but it's not like the past few years where he was pretty much in a class of his own.
I mean,
the wreck issues, obviously. Wreck issues. Sorry, Richard.
That's right. No, I was just going to say, when they started Gen 3, it was such a change. Even Jack Smith got up the front there for a short while. Of course, he's back where he should be, but I was quite pleased to see for a short while he was up the front.
Yeah, I think it has added a bit of unpredictability to the to the category. They're certainly they're a much better car to watch. I think they're a much better looking car. They sound good. I've only seen them a couple of times now and in the flesh, but they certainly look and sound much better than the Gen 2 cars. And if they can just sort out this parity thing, because I suppose the main worry is that and Mark Rushbrook from Ford Performance has already sort of very heavily hinted at this. He's sort of saying, look, if we're not winning, we're not in it. I mean, if we get through the year and decide that we're not in a position to win the major races, and we're not up there challenging for the championship, there's no point us hanging around in this. We've got plenty of other motorsport to look at now. So
exactly,
and then you've got to wonder what it does for the companies as well. I mean, particularly GM. I mean, the Camaro's going out of production at sometime early next year or mid next year in America. They're not even importing any more into Australia now, so you can't sort of pop down to your local Chevy dealer and pick up a Camaro easily. I think there's you can get them. I've seen a couple of them on the road, but you don't see many of them. And I imagine that I don't know how many extra Mustangs would be sold by on behalf of somebody watching sort of supercars and going, oh wow, that Mustang's a cool car, I'm going to get one. I think the people who buy Mustangs are the people who want to buy Mustangs, and they were going to buy a Mustang regardless.
Yep, they want their open top, or they want their great big 5.4 litre going around. While we're on the supercars anyway, just before we go on to Roy's stuff, don't forget the Rex. I noticed you put, I think it's down there in the ticker there. They reckon the magic number is 24. I don't know why 24 is the magic number, because...
I do.
I
I
know
do.
the money. I know the money. I know how the money's distributed, but
No,
what's
it's
wrong with
just, no,
26?
it's not. It's not it's not the money. No,
What's
this
the 20?
is
What's the difference between 24 and 26?
24.
Two, I would have thought.
Yeah, and those extra 24 is the maximum number of supercars you can get onto the cargo of onto a 747 cargo
Oh, the
plane.
transporter. That's right. Which they've
It's
spent
the yeah, it's the
$100,000
it's
on
the
adjusting for the new Gen 3s. I saw that part too.
yeah, it's so
Ah.
and Barclay Nettlefold has this grand vision of of the
Singapore and
global
New Zealand.
circus. Singapore, of course, New
New
Zealand is
Zealand.
We've
obviously,
tried this before and it went.
and he wants to
It
try
didn't
it
work.
again.
The plane didn't go like that, though, did it, Richard?
No.
No, that's all right. That's the main thing. That's all right. We've had enough air.
The competition and the interest did, and the money, but the plane still stayed there.
Thank you, Richard.
Yeah,
Thank you for
good.
clearing it up. That's the main thing.
Yeah, I think that the problem is that they paid so much. Race have paid so much for the supercars when they bought it from Archer Capital. They need a return on their investment, and they got they got one big payout through the broadcast rights, but the broadcast rights don't come up again for quite a while now, so they're not going to get another injection in a hurry. They've got about they've tapped the government coffers about as much as they can in Australia. I think the well is sort of run dry there, so the only place they can go if they want to increase the profits and in a serious way, then the only thing they can do is open it up to new markets. And they obviously want to get back to New Zealand, and apparently they're confident now that the New Zealand government will come up with some finance to make that possible at Taupo later on sometime next year. But apart from that, their only other option is to move it to get it into Asia, into places like like Singapore and Malaysia and Indonesia and all of those sorts of places, in the hope that governments over there will say, well, if we bring the supercars to Sepang, for instance, the circuit at Sepang, an awful lot of Australian tourists, particularly from Western Australia, will say, well, hey, why don't we go up and spend a week in, or 3 or 4 days, or a week in Kuala Lumpur and Malaysia for a week, because that's what happened with the Super GTs when I went there for that, and it was enormously successful, and lots and lots and lots of the locals I spoke to over there, they knew a lot more about supercars than they did about Super GT. I mean, they loved the Super GT, but they really didn't know much about them at all. But they all knew about supercars because it was constantly on the television over there. Like when the Super GT race finished, I went back to my hotel room, walked in, turned on the television, and the race from Eastern Creek was on, live. So. And it was everywhere. People, when you were in bars and all that, you'd look up and there were supercars everywhere. So it gets lots of coverage over there.
Okay, good. That's good.
Oh well, we'll see see what Barry Rogers has, how much of more of a say he has in the situation.
Well, he'll have no say in that, but that's what happens. What happened today is that Gary Rogers himself and Gary Rogers Motorsport have basically got a bigger slice of the Australian Races Group now. They're very heavily invested into that concept. I mean, they're obviously running half the field, probably more than half the field in S5000. They're running quite a few of the cars in TCR. They're putting all their eggs into that basket and hoping that takes off more than anything else. Mark, can't get you. Yeah, I know the feeling, Mark. I'm having the same problem. Mark can't get used to Wednesday night. I'm having the same problem. Wednesday nights and 8:30 are both killers for me. But we're getting there. I think it suits everybody else. I think we're in the minority there. Okay, yes. Just quickly from Darwin as well. The very successful meeting. Great racing. We had the superbikes were there. Troy Herfus winning the weekend overall and drawing closer to to Josh Waters in the in that. In the championship for the Australian the Superbike Championship, but also the drags. Damien Harris took out the top fuel. They're really spectacular, but probably not as many cars as last year. And I'm not sure what was wrong with the track, but there were a number of really big accidents. Lisa Gregorini in the top door slammer had quite a big crash and thankfully was not badly injured. There was another local competitor up there in a beautiful HQ Monaro. She crashed, lost control halfway in pretty much identical position on the track, hit the wall hard, and then the car burst into flames. Once again, she wasn't injured, thankfully, but the car was fairly badly damaged. But then right at the end of the night, in the last run of the night, the newly crowned Australian top door slammer champion, Kelvin Lyle, had a big crash in his Mustang top door slammer and was taken to hospital was listed in a critical condition. The good news is that his partner has Shania, I think her name was, has posted on her Facebook page that he's now awake and alert and in good spirits. Has quite extensive injuries. However, the prognosis is that given time and given treatment, he will fully recover. So that's good news. But I imagine they're going to have a look. Andrew and the people up at Hidden Valley are going to have a look at just what went wrong there, because all the accidents happened around the same point of the track, and pretty much everybody who went down the track said that for some reason, on the transition between the concrete launch pad and the asphalt part of the circuit, they just, it was really slippery, and a few of them just lost control, and obviously there was the big accident to Kelvin. So, but anyway, good luck to Kelvin, and also to Lisa Gregorini. She was doing a fabulous job, beat her husband in the first round of racing. So, I hope we see him back on the track fairly soon. Okay.
That's Darwin finished in 40 minutes.
Yep. They would have thought it might do better with a few names in the Bathurst 6 hour. The following is still low. Yeah, I mean the Bathurst 6 hours is a great race. In fact, our mate John Hindhoff from Radio Le Mans said during the Le Mans broadcast, when he was talking to Richard Crail, just said that the Bathurst 6 hour. He only did the one that he commentated on. He said, but that was basically his favourite race. He said, he loves the 12 hour, loves the 1000. Obviously, Le Mans is his favourite international race, but he said the one race that he really, really likes and would like to do more of and would like to compete at one day was the Bathurst 6 hour. He just thought it was a great meeting and a great event. So, yeah, it would be nice to see it. The problem is, what are they going to raise it? More and more, how many people are still building sort of sedan? At the moment, if you don't have a BMW, you're probably not going to win. It's either going to be a BMW or possibly a Mercedes, and at a real outside chance, you might get up, a Mustang could get up under the right circumstances, but basically it's Formula BMW.
Yeah, those
rear engine.
That was very
car. There's not much to compete against it. Really.
I ran across that concept late last year, early this year when we were talking about that, wasn't I, Brett? About the BM or the 4 Series that was dominating. If you didn't have that, you're in trouble. So, yeah, everyone will be trying to jump on that wagon. The other thing is, I suppose, what's the lead time now on trying to get hold of one to Australia in a race format as well, though, too? I suppose it'll be limited.
Yeah, well, they're a competition special, and it's not like the old days where you can say, okay, let's cut back the maximum price of the cars that are available and bring it back so that it's, because, if you do that, the only thing that's going to win then will probably be a Mustang, because you can't buy a Camaro. I'm not sure what in that category is going to be, is going to be competitive, something around the $65,000-$70,000 mark. What's going to, if you said, okay, we're going to put a limit of, say, $75,000 on the cars to keep out some of the, those competition specials like the BMW. What are you going to replace them? What are you going to replace them with? It's I think it's really hard. I don't know how you do it. I love the idea of it. I think it's a great race in the class structure and with some of the, unless you go back and you sort of say, well, okay, it's just going to be for 4-cylinder cars or something, but then that opens up a whole bunch of BMWs as well.
Yeah, that sort of pocket.
Well,
isn't
actually,
it?
I was talking to a guy out at Sandown, and he imported a race-ready M3 for $120,000. It was race-ready.
Was that all?
He tried, yeah. Well, when you consider that the M4 off the showroom floor was over 160,000, and then you have to prepare it, and it was the M3 was blowing away the M4. That's relatively cheap racing if you've got a lot of money.
I was going to say relatively cheap, Richard, especially if that's a nice chunk out of your superannuation though as well too.
I struggle with I struggle to afford the XL, so I'm not in that part.
What's the upgrade we're looking at now, Richard? What stage are we upgrading the
Placing with Richard. Thank you.
Well, it is a popular category. If you wanted to get the numbers up, that'd be the way to do it. Replace everything with XLs. But as we've well seen, and as we said, I think last week, if it was the number one category in Australia, it's like Larry said about the HQ Holdens. You could spend $1 million on them, and some people, I think, probably get
some
close.
People probably just about doing that. Yes, well, certainly over a few years.
Yeah, I think so. Also on the weekend, of course, we had the Canadian Grand Prix and yet another dominant performance by Max Verstappen, who equalled Ayrton Senna's number of wins. Pete, what did you think of the race? It was Verstappen wasn't really challenged, but what about for the rest? What about back in the pack? Was it a decent race to watch, despite of that?
Yeah, there were improvements from Aston Martin and Mercedes. Definitely, Mercedes were sort of up there on the podium, and Lando Norris, despite getting a penalty, he pulled off an amazing move with Esteban Ocon, I think it was, in the Alpine at the last lap. But yeah, it was a bit processional. Apart from
I thought
that,
the Williams upgrades were actually quite good as well too. They brought new packages, and I was quite impressed by their stuff. That was
Alex Albon did a very good job. But as you can see, there are now rumours in some. Once again, it's the German media, so take it with a very large pinch of salt. But German media are saying that because of the Mercedes connection, that Mick Schumacher could be being tapped on the shoulder to take over from Logan Sargent, because Sargent really hasn't come on. He's not, and he mightn't be the only one too. There's a very strong rumour that possibly they might wait until after his home Grand Prix in Holland, but Nick de Vries is looking very, very shaky as well at the moment.
Week, that one.
Yeah, and they can, because they've got basically they've got Liam Lawson, just ready to step in, and he's despite the fact that he had in the most recent round he's lost the lead of the Super Formula in Japan. He's been well informed there. He's been leading the series. He's won a number of races. They're very high performance cars, and I think that. I think there's a lot of people in at Red Bull who are thinking that De Vries out, Lawson in might be a bad idea.
Well, he's an uncharted talent, so at least got to give him a race or two, don't they, Liam? So, and if he performs enough, he can certainly be looking at new prospects. But yeah, I thought who was it? Pete said Alpine and Williams were the two biggest package upgrades for the weekend. I was looking at the Friday warm up that they on the 45-minute special or the couple of days before the start.
Williams, Alpine. And Mercedes.
Yeah, but I thought the Williams upgrades were the best of the whole three. You could see they were proven to be a lot better than the other two. That significant performance include. And what you mentioned, Max, at the start, I found that I was watching some of the highlights from the practice sections, or was it even qualifying? And Max is in that much of a zone now. He's just sitting there having a laugh, commentating himself now as he's driving around.
Yeah.
He often does that.
He often does it, but it was a little bit more than what he usually does. And however, I'll tell you who should have copped a penalty, and absolutely Stonewall Jackson, is how bad was Saints' bloody damn old Sunday driving going on?
Yeah.
He was abysmal. He was blocking. He was daydreaming.
Driving all over the road.
Waving to the crowd, and there's cars trying to get around doing qualifying laps.
Yeah.
He's just got the arm out the window. We're getting the arm bloody tan. And why didn't he cop a bigger penalty for that stuff, Saints?
Yeah, who knows?
I mean, you've got to provide footage for the Netflix series. I mean,
What? You can just put a whole lot of bleeps across the screen from all the other drivers who are all just banked up behind him, just sitting on his back wing.
Yeah, but the thing is, it won't be bleeped on Netflix. It'll be real. It'll be good fun on watching on Netflix.
I'm a big fan of Carlos. He's a great guy, and he's a good racer, and he's done well to get
Personally, I think the next season of Netflix is going to Drive to Survive.
I'll tell you what, was driving Miss Daisy. He was.
Personally, I think the next season of Drive to Survive is going to be as boring as bird droppings.
Well, I think it's been boring. I think it's been boring. I haven't liked it. The stuff that I watched of it, the bits of the series, I wasn't interested in it at all.
I'm going to buy one of his t-shirts. I'm going to get one of Gunther's t-shirts and wear it on full course yellow and stuff.
I love the photo from, I think it was from the grid at Canada, of Gunther meeting Gordon Ramsay, and people saying like you wouldn't want to have a live microphone over the top of that conversation.
There'd be entertainment, plus you pay to watch it though.
Hey, how to revitalise Drive to Survive? Sergeant out, Daniel in, something like that. They all love him.
We didn't get it, unfortunately, but Daniel was busy on the weekend. He did the alternative. He did an alternative commentary for ESPN in the USA, and his co-commentator was the comedian Will Arnett.
Oh yes,
but it got canned.
Did it? I haven't heard anything about it.
Not all of it got canned. I was going to put it as my lower third instead of congratulating Adrian Ewan on his 200th win. He has got mixed reviews, and when I say mixed, he's probably got more bad than anything. He was not that good, so I don't think he's done more harm than good with his chances on Sky Sports getting the commentary role. There's the Formula One races. There's some great commentators that have arrived down the years, but I don't know whether he's going to convert or not.
That's interesting. It would have been interesting. I didn't like the fact that when they said, Will Arnett, and it's like, because obviously the brief that he's got is be funny. And it's obviously commentary for people who don't like Formula One. It's sort of Roy and HG doing the State of Origin, which I think is on tonight. Actually, I think it's. But I have zero interest in the State of Origin. I've been to a couple of them, and I
forgot it was on until you. I'll get a score update for everyone who's got zero interest as well. Hold on.
I think if you did get if Daniel did get a permanent commentary gig, I think he'd be in the mould of James Hunt, which I actually quite liked. I was younger then; I was a kid, but I actually quite liked James Hunt's commentary. So I think
I thought James and Murray were, and then
sensational.
And then later on, Murray and Martin Brundle were terrific. A very unlikely combination. I mean, Murray said in the interview we did with Murray, he said when he was first partnered with James, he didn't sort of like it at all, but they became not just a great commentary team, but the very, very best of friends. And Murray was even after all those years, Murray was very emotional when he was talking about talking about James. He was very fond of him. So they were really good.
Community service announcement. As far as this is, especially since the government and the regulation and sports betting is actually prevalent at the moment. It's a big thing. They need to get some of this banned because it's ridiculous. But you win some, you lose more. Queensland are up 20-0. So just as
well, it sounds like an exciting game then.
Yeah, shellacking. Absolutely. Anyway, moving right along.
Yes. Well, as Paul said, Roy and HG would be a good alternative Bathurst commentary. Actually, I tell you why they wouldn't be, and I was very annoyed. They actually did commentary for the Australian Grand Prix one year, and it was. I'm quite a fan of Roy and HG. I mean, I like their stuff usually, and they were the only reason I ever listened or took any interest in the State of Origin at all was when they were doing their alternative commentary, and also when they did the commentary of the AFL as well. I thought it was always very entertaining. They did it one year for the Australian Grand Prix, and I know that it's a gag and all the rest of it, but a lot of the stuff they would do, and it worked. It could have turned out very badly if anybody, because they were just on about how dangerous. Wouldn't it be wonderful to see if somebody die this week? Wouldn't that be great, HG? Oh yes. Oh, there's a crash. I wonder if he's going to die. Oh no, he's got out. What a shit! It was real. It was just It was just over. I didn't like it at all. It was just they were clearly taking the direction. It just went in the wrong direction, and it was clearly very bad taste. And it was fine when they were sort of, but had there been like a genuine tragedy there, it would have looked and sounded like it was a very risky thing to do because they were. Yeah, it just didn't sound good at all. I turned it off. I was very angry about that. It was just. They took it just one step too far. But anyway, that's there. Doc, before we go, MotoGP on the weekend. Marc Marquez, for God, Mark, I know you're not he doesn't listen to us. He doesn't. But if somebody out there happens to know Marc Marquez and can get a message to him, please, Mark, stop. Don't do this anymore. You're going to kill yourself.
Or not only just put someone's bike in half, you're going to seriously injure them as well too. And don't try and blame them when it's pretty much your fault, because that was just the biggest disappointment of the lead up to the race itself. I'm a big fan of Mark. I talk about him from time to time as well too. Great fan of him. He's a fantastic champion. He's one of the best that's ever raced, but you're not a law unto yourself, unfortunately. So if you hit somebody, and it doesn't matter whether they're coming out of the pits or not, you still have, and they don't see you, and you can see them, you do have to break your bike. You've got a responsibility in life to be able to do the right thing. So he was very, very, very lucky, that one. No one got seriously injured from that particular accident. Have a look on YouTube, and if you want to see a motorbike hit in the middle and torn in half, and crazy people get arms and legs down anyway. But yeah, Brett, you're totally right. Have to agree with you. He is. I think he's got some sort of record. He hasn't finished a race for the year so far this year. That is guaranteed, and he's just a DNF after DNF, DNF after left. I mean, we usually say to the younger rookies when they're in the MotoGP and they're just graduating from the lower classes like Moto2 or Moto3, and because some of them make the jump straight from 3 to the big class sometimes. And it's a significantly bigger bike, significantly a lot more power and a lot more handling. So it takes a while to adapt to it. Yeah, he needs to slow down, and I don't know whether it's pre-existing injuries or he's pushing himself too hard, or hasn't got that relationship with the bike that he's always had, because Honda's always trying to mould it around him, and he's always trying to give him the feedback so he can get the best response from the Honda. It just doesn't seem to be working at the moment, and yeah, it's rather disappointing. The race was fantastic. It was a little bit of a 2-horse race there for a lot of it, but Bagnaia and Martin were fighting it out for the last 10 laps, and that was really exciting. I usually like to see a little bit more of a tear up when, exciting races of 10 bikes in length or a procession, and then they're usually smashing each other towards the end. But, this one just sort of built up in anticipation, and unfortunately, Jack Miller dropped down. He was very good at the start. He even led on the first lap for a little bit. But, I think Brad Binder's just got that little bit of take a bit of advice from Brad at the moment, how he's riding it. Jack, he's been riding it a year or two longer than you have. and you might, hopefully he gets that, takes up to that extra step he needs to get to and gets it up on the podium. But obviously in difference to Mark at the moment, at least he's staying on the bike and finishing the races and doing the best he can. And he doesn't seem to be having that fighting with the team that everyone was predicting at the start of the year, that KTM and Jack might have that clash. They would have locked horns. So, yeah, great race. We're sort of halfway through the season in that, but it's the battle of Ducatis. There's no doubt about that. But at least there's half a dozen bikes in the Ducati realm that will everyone can sort of have back or have a bit of fun with and challenge Bagnaia for the.
We talk about sort of the domination of the Camaros in supercars. I mean, there's it's the domination of the Ducatis, but as you say, at least it is a couple of different teams. But yeah, it would be nice to see. It would be nice to see a couple of different manufacturers up there as well. Jack seems to have a problem with making tyres. He just seems to go at it really, just way too hard at the start, and then inevitably just slowly either falls back through the pack or crashes, pushing it too hard. So I think he's got to learn to pace himself a little bit more, because obviously he's using up those tyres pretty quickly in the race. But he's he's not 100% out of it. He's not that far off the pace. Probably better than a lot of people thought that he might do with the KTMs. So so he's doing a pretty good job, and he's obviously very entertaining. Keeps us.
Well, the KTMs are more competitive than what the Hondas are at the moment. So there you go, boom boom. So I got Alicia Spargo has been very critical of a few things lately, and I actually wouldn't mind hearing him saying a little bit more. He's actually got his nail on a little bit. Now, he was very critical of Marc Marquez at the last round, and Mark doesn't seem to be changing his tune a little bit. So I don't know if he's just trying to make him. Someone made a comment. He's just trying to be too relevant in his speaking and then actually letting his bike do. And he should be just staying on it and riding as well, though, too. But it could be a little bit of frustration from both parties within the camp there as well.
Well, he's obviously overriding the bike. He's trying to make up for the inadequacies of the bike, and he's overriding the thing, and he's putting it down too often. And that's the thing. He's either going to, he's either going to do serious damage to himself, or he's going to do serious damage to somebody else. And
well, the last thing as well too is the silence is deafening in one particular part of the paddock, and everyone's just sort of letting it go. But the Yamahas are very, very quiet at the moment. Not the riders and the bikes themselves aren't. So they're probably being a lot more respectful than what Honda are doing. If you haven't got the merchandise, don't spruik it. So maybe Honda could take a leaf out of Yamaha's book and just work behind the scenes and work hard on the bike and support your riders and keep your riders in check to make sure, just keep a lid on it. If you've got nothing nice to say sometimes for the time being, don't say it at all. And let's just work on being competitive again.
It's been such a change. I mean, when you look back sort of, 10, 15 years ago, it was, Japanese bikes just totally dominated the scene. And, then Ducati got faster and faster and started in the era of Casey Stoner when Ducati were doing well. And now you've got not just Ducati, but you've also got KTM and, Aprilia aren't up there at the moment. But, they are there or thereabouts. So, I European bikes.
Two people, and there are two big names in Europe and Australia here. Casey Stoner does deserve some credit for not just getting from wrestling that bike and making it work to a high level standard and winning championships, but also a bit of an unknown entity. People forget that Andre Dovizioso was riding the bike on long-term contracts for many years there too. When, as you said, 10 years ago, the Japanese bikes were very dominant. Well, Andre was he was mid-pack or down the field, but he just did for year after year before even Valentino Valle jumped on board, because they were together teammates at one stage. Andre did so much development for that for year after year. Even Nicky Hayden, before, bless his soul as well too, was there back in the day working on the bike for a couple of years there when he was a factory rider. And they just did so much development work in the days, the infancy of trying to get that bike competitive. And they were given concessions as well, though, too. They were allowed a higher rev range than some of the other ones and a couple of extra aerodynamic edges. but it really needed a lot of work for a lot of years. Almost everyone said that the jump on the bike there that it was almost unrideable at times. So, yeah, a big congratulations. The last one I want to say to as well too, an ex-Honda man, and he is coming up, and he does a lot of testing for KTM behind the scenes, is Danny Pedrosa. Congratulations to him. He's in mid-30s as well though too. Still getting on the bike every weekend. Still contributing. He's a bit of a quiet achiever as well too, and he is getting another wildcard round coming up in a few weeks' time on back of a KTM. So good stuff. Looking forward to seeing him back on two wheels.
Okay, well, I think we've covered. There was so much to cover tonight, but thank you to everybody for joining us tonight. Now, as I said, tomorrow night, 9 o'clock on Channel 31 Melbourne, Rats, Tats and Pin-Ups from Sandown, not from the track, from the pub. It was a great Sunday. Speaking of Sunday, coming up, as you can see, as the Australian Pro Motocross Championship is happening up at Toowoomba, up in Queensland, and it sounds like Knackers is heading up there and getting some sunshine, so half your luck, mate. I will possibly be out at Calder Park on Sunday, depending on what the weather does, because they've got the roll racing out there. It was cancelled last week because of the forecast, which was absolutely terrible. Turned out to be a pretty good day. The weather certainly in the morning out at Sandown for the car show was lovely. Also coming up this Sunday, the Penrite guys have got in their Garage 18, I think it's called, out at Wanturna. They've got an open day there, so if you want to head out there, that might be another option for you as well. And there's also on the Saturday, I think it is, there's another car meet. There's a tuned meet happening out at once again at Calder Park on the Saturday. So there's a few things around. Not a lot of motorsport, sort of the circuit racing type happening in Melbourne at the moment, but there's other stuff around. So head out and have a bit of a wander around, see some nice cars. It was a great day at Rats, Tats and Pin-Up, so keep an eye out.
Go out and warm your hands under the bonnet of some more of the cars.
Exactly, that's it. Okay, everybody, we'll see you next week. Possibly, we'll have to see what's there, because as I said last week, got some work coming up on Wednesday nights for the foreseeable future. Well, we'll work out something into that time, but bit of a scheduling problem at the moment, so we'll let you know what's happening. Keep on the In Pit Lane Facebook page, and we'll let you know what's happening. Okay, everybody, thanks for joining us tonight. We'll see you next week. Until then, from all of us, bye for now, everyone. See you later.
Have a great weekend. Have a great winter solstice weekend.